Hello, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast, a show hosted by me, Veronica Kokos, holistic voice teacher and singer just like you. Grab a cup of tea, relax, and sit back as we discuss all things singing technique, mindset tips, and more so you can show up as the most confident and creative singer you can be. Hi, y'all, and welcome to another episode of No Wrong Notes. I have got a great guest episode to kick off the fall podcast season, this time with Sophie Adickes, who is a mental performance coach that helps creatives, artists, and entrepreneurs overcome performance anxiety, manage stress, and build unshakable self-confidence. That sounds so wonderful, you guys, doesn't it? A former performer herself, she knows firsthand the pressure of working in a high-stress industry, and she's on a mission to equip clients with the mental tools and daily habits they need to stay resilient and believe in themselves. Her ultimate goal is to make sure no one walks away from their passion because they lack the mental skills to thrive. Sophie is a certified coach with a master's in psychology, along with a bachelor's and master's degrees in vocal performance. In this episode, Sophie gives tangible, practical tools for dealing with performance anxiety, which I know you'll love because we love practical tools, am I right? All right, let's get into this week's episode with Sophie Adickes. Hello, Sophie Adickes, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast.
I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I would love to hear more about you, and I'm sure the rest of the listeners would love to hear more about you, who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are in your career as a performance coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, I'm a mental performance coach. So I work primarily with actors, singers, performers on performance anxiety, confidence building, and any kind of mindset blocker that might be holding them back from peak performance. How did I get here is the bigger question. Definitely took kind of a windy path to get here. I did a very traditional vocal education upbringing, I guess. I went and got my undergrad at New England Conservatory and studied classical voice performance. Moved on and did musical theater performance at NYU and got a master's there. And then I was performing, just doing like regional theater, musical theater, really up until the pandemic. And uh, and then when the pandemic hit, I was working in the wellness industry, more on like the physical side of things, but had always been really interested in the mind-body connections, particularly how it relates to stress relief and stress management. So I decided to go back to school and get my master's in psychology, sort of focusing on those two major components, and then quickly realized that there were just so many skills and tools that I wish that I had learned when I was a performer. And I feel like the mental side of performing is something that is talked about quite a lot in the athletic realm, especially for single sports. Like I'm sure we've all read The Inner Game of Tennis or something like that. But especially in like golf and tennis, the mental component is pretty massive. And a lot of athletes are working with performance coaches from sort of the collegiate level, even sometimes earlier onward. And I felt like there was so much in performance psychology and just in psychological research in general that would have been so helpful to have known when I was an actor and going through school. And I had just seen so many of my friends and colleagues pull away from acting and like take a break because they had really lost their love for it. And so now my goal as a mental performance coach is to make sure that nobody sort of abandons their art and their passion simply because they don't have the mental skills to stay resilient in an industry where you're obviously getting a lot of criticism and a lot of rejection. So That's basically what I do now. I work one-on-one with clients from literally all over the world, which is amazing. And from sort of opera singers into musical theater, straight acting, instrumentalists. So kind of a wide array of clients.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And what a cool story. Absolutely. You were saying about resilience, and I literally was just scrolling on Instagram before this conversation, and I saw this clip where I guess it was in a masterclass situation, and this woman was singing, and like there were lots of beautiful things happening in her singing, and this teacher just kept cutting in and saying, no, do this, do this, do this. And I feel like a lot of times singers and performers are just expected to put up with it. This is just part of what we do, right? And I think that that can really cause a lot of burnout with artists. It certainly caused a lot of burnout within me because I think that, I especially used to struggle with performance anxiety when I was younger, and I was often told to just do it, to just push through it, push through, and to put your fear to the side. And while I feel like there are good intentions behind the advice of just do it, I think that the more that we do things, we can often become more resilient through doing it. I found that I still struggled with shaky legs and fear on stage. How do you feel about such approaches to performance anxiety? That advice of just to do it. And how does your approach differ?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of us, like you mentioned, got that advice of with experience, things will get better. And I still hear it quite a lot, like from my clients and even on clips on social media when it comes to performance anxiety. The issue with experience is that what we want to avoid is that feeling of, oh, if I just do the same thing over and over, I'm going to get a different result. Usually, if that is your sort of plan of action, it's really then dependent on the fact that eventually you'll get enough positive reinforcement from the environment to make you feel comfortable with the experience. That eventually you're going to get enough positive reinforcement to build up your self-confidence externally. And then, yeah, experience might make it better because you're continuing to sort of climb the ladder and get more and more positive feedback. Most people don't have that experience. Um, in my approach, it's not just centered on like reducing performance anxiety symptoms. It is also about increasing your internal self-confidence, knowing what you do really well, what your strengths are, because that's what's going to create the foundation for resilience. It's really hard for somebody to be resilient when they don't even know what they do well. They don't know what they bring to the table. And in sort of the school education environment, especially for like high achievers, perfectionists, which a lot of musicians sort of fall into that category, hard workers, it is we're trained to want to get the A, to want to get that positive feedback because that is how you learn technically, right? Like even as a voice teacher, I'm sure, like you have to give feedback in order to make those technical changes. But when it comes to self-esteem, that does need to come from you. It needs to come internally. And so going back to kind of the experience thing, we have to be doing things differently in order for that experience to build confidence. Because, yes, confidence is built by doing, but that might need to be a slight mindset shift. That might need to be setting a really intentional goal for yourself going in that's independent from external circumstances. There are a lot of sort of variables we can play with, but we can't just continue to throw ourselves in the deep end and hope that one day we're going to wake up and suddenly feel confident.
Yeah, definitely. And I would be very curious. So, okay, I'm 100% with you
Uh-huh.
in needing that change to come from within because, we can't control, there's only so much we can control externally, right? I guess I would be curious to hear from you an example of like, I don't know, like let's say an audition setting. I guess what would the shift be like on a practical, like tangible level?
So I think like when it comes to an audition setting, a lot of what I hear is we're going in with that expectation, and I've done this too. You go in with this like very generalized goal of I want to do well, or I want to not mess up. And then afterwards, we give ourselves very similar feedback. It's like, I did a good job or I did a bad job. Um, Instead, or it's if it's not a very general goal, it's a goal that's very dependent on the person on the other side of the table. I want to impress them. I want to fit into the idea in their head. We're trying to mind read in the room. Um, and that can be obviously really overwhelming and anxiety provoking because there's a lot of things outside of our control. So what I would recommend in that kind of a situation to make it more of like an intrinsic goal or like a goal that's based more on what's happening within you is to think about what you want to get out of the audition, independent from the feedback, independent from like the result. What's maybe something that you can learn from the experience, something that you want to experiment with, or what is something that you're going to enjoy about the audition. Like make it as specific to you as possible if you can, like connect it to something that you do really well and make sure that it's something that you can give yourself feedback on afterwards. Did I do that? Did I not do that? So maybe it's like I just want to like slow down and take up space when I walk into the room. And that's a super specific thing. Maybe I would know if I took up space because I wouldn't feel so rushed walking out of there. I would maybe take a more open posture. This is obviously just an example, but that might be something that you could focus on that would be independent from the external feedback and something that would also strengthen that confidence side. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes total sense. I think back to whenever I was in high school, because I feel like I feel like as I got older, like I was getting more confidence and things like that. I feel like nervousness was especially a hard thing when I was in high school and like early college. But there were, because I grew up in Texas, and I know you are actually in Texas now, but the all state auditions in Texas are just extremely high pressure, terrible. But this, like, it's a blind audition too. I remember going in there one time and saying, okay, I know the cut for this one song, and I know that I do it really well because I can sing the melismas really well or something. And that was like a goal I set for myself. And I was like, like I came out and I aced it. And I was like, okay, so definitely I'm right there with you. And like having these specific goals that are independent of, I've got to make everybody else in the room happy. You know, it's like, can I think of something that is specific to me that, again, I really like what you were saying too about things that you do well and focusing on that rather than, I need to do this, I need this, you know? And I do recognize that a lot of our habits and thought patterns, like I've got to please the other people in the room. I've got to make them happy. I want them to pick me, you know? A lot of these habits and thought patterns don't just come from nowhere. They're often the product of a lifetime of conditioning. When it comes to the habits and thought patterns that might be blocking us from achieving our goals, what do you think is the first step towards unlearning not helpful, unlearning unhelpful habits and patterns?
It's going to sound really simple, but I think just identifying them, like acknowledging that they are unhelpful. Because I think sometimes our brains are like extremely energy efficient and thought patterns that are well established over time that we regularly go down are going to be the ones that we default to in those high pressure situations, especially when our like prefrontal cortex might be a bit more offline. We can't make those like more rational decisions. The emotional part of our brain is a little bit more hyperactive in that fight or flight state. So I always say to like clients initially, like, let's just gather data. Let's just take notes, give ourselves feedback, try to gather as much data from every performance experience or practice session or voice lesson as possible so that we can start to identify what might be the trigger and also start to recognize, okay, maybe this thought pattern that I had was helpful at one point in time. It was maybe super motivating, like for example, like a sort of perfectionistic kind of thought pattern of, oh, I'm not good enough. Okay, something like that. That kind of a thought might be helpful in that it might make you work really hard and it might sort of make you stay in the practice room a bit longer or constantly be achieving at the next step. The problem is that if you never feel like you're good enough, you're constantly going to probably be seeking approval from other people. It might be kind of chipping away at your self-esteem covertly. And so acknowledging, okay, I have this thought, it might have served me in the past, but it's no longer serving me, can start to open up the door of, okay, well, what are my other options? What are some other thought patterns that might be more helpful in this situation? And that also takes away the judgment from it because it's not that that thought is bad and we need to avoid the thought. It's just, okay, that's happening, but that's no longer helpful for me right now.
Yes, I definitely I'm with you for sure. And I find that that is the kind of approach that I've taken, in my own sort of healing work that I do on myself and things like that. I do think too that, and I'll add to this, that writing things down can also help you become aware of these things. Because I was sitting here thinking as you were talking, and like that concept of awareness, there are so many people, singers, individuals out there that just aren't aware of these patterns. Like they're maybe going about their business in the world, acting a certain way and behaving a certain way, and they just have no idea. It's kind of like that idea of like, what is it? The water you swim in, you're used to going through the world in a certain way. And I think that the question becomes, well, like if I'm finding myself constantly nervous going into the audition room, how can I become aware of what's actually happening? And that's where I think these things like self-reflection tools, like if you're really serious about making change in your singing or in your life, I think self-reflection is needed, whether it's just, thinking through your thoughts, like thinking things to yourself, or writing it down. That's where I think writing it down becomes super, super helpful. Because I think that when you see it on the page or you see it in your notes app as you're kind of like jotting things down, I think it's a lot easier to see patterns, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I give clients to some like post performance sort of journal sheets just to start to get used to gathering that data and giving like more specific prompts. Cause yeah, sometimes, and I struggle with this too, like journaling can be so helpful, but sometimes it feels like, oh man, if I start, I'm never gonna stop. Like, where's the cutoff here? So if it's like a new thing for you, either doing sort of like a guided sheet can be really helpful, or set a timer, like set a 2 minute timer. And after every audition, you just sit out there for 2 minutes and you just like type or voice memo. Now you can voice memo, which is even better. All of your stuff. And then if you want to, if you have like lots of sort of 2 minute voice memo dumps or brain dumps on your phone, you can actually slot all that stuff into ChatGPT. Have ChatGPT sort of analyze for patterns as well. If you aren't working with a coach and don't have someone specific to talk to, but you want to gain a little bit more self-awareness and knowledge.
Wow, I never thought about that, but wow, that is another tool that you can use for sure. I really like that, especially like the voice memos thing, because whenever I broke my wrist a couple years ago, it was my right wrist too, so it was my dominant hand, and I was like, I can't journal about any of this. So I can't. Who am I going to talk to? And I was like, I can talk to myself on my voice memos.
Yeah.
Um, Now, a lot of your work centers around anchoring into the present moment. While I'm a huge advocate of meditation and mindfulness, I understand that in today's fast paced world and also technological centered world, a lot of people have a hard time slowing down and being present. What advice would you give to a singer who maybe struggles to be present on stage or just as they're kind of moving about their life?
Yeah, I think this is another one that's common with like high achievers, people that are just busy, the hustle culture. There's this pressure to constantly going and constantly be productive. And sometimes we associate mindfulness or meditation or even like yoga with being uh I'm just gonna say this, a waste of time. Sometimes I've heard this before. And honestly, I felt that way before too. Oh, how is sitting still gonna make me feel any better? It's not gonna take away all the stuff on my to-do list. It's not going to move me closer to my goals. But what we don't realize is like we need those moments, especially if you are in that hustle culture for like the clients that I work with that are living in New York City, where it's like a very like highly stimulating environment. We need moments in the day to like downregulate our nervous system and bring us back into the present moment because so much of our worry or so much of our anxiety is going to stem from either like worries about the future or rumination over the past. So practicing coming to the present moment, even if it's something super small, and something that you can even do on your daily commute if you're on the subway. If you're driving, it's kind of hard to practice mindfulness, but there are some things you could do. But I think that it's really helpful to practice that down regulation so that then when you are in like a high stress environment, you have practiced bringing yourself into the present moment, calming down your nervous system. And there's lots of obviously studies about how mindfulness and anything orienting you to the present is going to calm the nervous system down. Uh, a couple things like tools wise, I guess, that might be helpful if you're just starting to introduce mindfulness and you struggle with it, is one to like start by practicing meditation like while you're out for a walk. Sometimes that can be like a really good gateway into meditation is like, okay, then you are at least getting your steps so you can check off the productivity thing. But I just like to like go out for and start to just notice the things around me. Like if you can, like try to avoid listening listening to a pod, try to avoid not multitasking while you're doing this. But yeah, either put like noise canceling headphones on or you could put in like some light music as long as it's not too distracting. But start to look around in your environment, connecting to the five senses is super helpful. Like finding some like a couple, you could do like a five, I think you're familiar with it, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes, yes, where it's like five things you see, four things you come. I always think of like four things you're like touching because I think that that's easier for me to think
Okay,
about.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, like, but I know what you're talking about.
So yeah, so it'd be like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. So like obviously the taste and smell ones can sometimes be a bit iffy, but I've had clients where they'll find like either sort of you could bring your own props for this, right? So they might use like some essential oils for like the smell, or like a cool mint, or like a sour candy for a taste, or like what are those like the grethers or like something like that that's like very soothing. But if you're out in the environment and you can just orient to the things that you can see, I think like visual meditation is just one of the easiest ones. So going out and either doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to with all the senses, or even if it's just like um, okay, I'm gonna go out and notice everything. I like doing like a color walk, so like noticing like everything green in the environment or everything red in the environment. And then you just go and you're like, oh, okay, I see a red stop sign and I see a red car and that girl's nail polish is red and she's wearing a red coat. Like those kinds of things actually really calm your brain down because it gives you something really specific to focus on, which is gonna again just bring you back into the present. And that's something that you can do like pre-audition too, to just give yourself something to focus on so that you're not catapulted into all the worries about the future or start to like overthink things about the past. So it's a good one to do when you feel like the brain's kind of running a million miles a minute and you just need to bring it back to like ground zero.
Yes, I love that one. And that was just, I guess I called it in my mind like I spy almost, like where I'm like, I spy
Yes.
this, like the leaves on the trees or something like that. I was doing that on my walks for the longest time. And it's so funny what you were saying too about not wearing head or like not listening to something super stimulating like a podcast or audiobook, like maybe some light music. It's funny because the other week I think it was not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I went on my long run and I drove to this trail and I realized when I got in the car I forgot my headphones and I was like, no, I have to run 5 miles without headphones. And then I was like, actually, this is a great opportunity to just be present. And it was fine. I was like, this is actually really pleasant. That sounds so stupid, but I was like, I don't know. It's like when you're tuning into the senses, when you're just like there in your body and just experiencing rather than, I don't know, it kind of calms them. It definitely calms the mind. It doesn't probably calm the mind, it definitely calms the mind.
Yeah.
Are there any other tools that you recommend when it comes to managing performance anxiety or finding that kind of presence?
In terms of bringing yourself to the present moment.
Yeah, or I think you had mentioned we were talking earlier about breath work. I guess what do you think of breath work as a tool?
Yeah, breath work can be really helpful. I think sometimes people have like a bad experience with breath work because they associate it with like the objective being to not be nervous and to like not feel like a rapid heartbeat. And so they're going to do breath work and then they won't have a fast heartbeat anymore. It can be really helpful if you're using it as a mindfulness technique, not with the intention of necessarily like getting your heartbeat to stop beating fast or quickly. But yeah, the easiest ones in terms of just bringing yourself down, I think are like box breathing. So giving yourself like inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and just cycling through that can be really helpful. You can even do it visually as well to like kind of connect to the senses, like tracing like a box on a piece of paper or on your hand, just to give yourself again something really tangible to focus onto. I think also one that I find really helpful is if you have any kind of like phrases or things that sort of connect you to yourself, any kind of like mantras or like affirmations, if that works for you, to kind of connect those with the breath work as well. So, sort of like breathing in that like positive, like you've got this energy, and then exhaling stress and tension. Sometimes that visual is also really helpful to kind of ground you, but also connect the mindfulness to the breath and the mental to the physical. So that's another sort of breath work tool that I think is also really helpful. Um, but yeah, breath work is a good one to practice outside of, I think sometimes people only practice it like right before they're about to go on stage and they're really, really nervous. And I recommend like with any kind of tool, make sure that you're practicing it before you're in that super heightened state. Like practice it in the practice room before you start to sing, practice it before you go into a voice lesson, practice it when you're on the subway or if you're feeling stressed about something else in life unrelated to music, just because it gives you, like, the more that the tools become second nature, the easier it is for them to be able to calm you down in those heightened states when you really need it, versus like only using it as a band-aid when you're about to have a panic attack before going on stage.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think if the first time you're using something like that when you're about to go into an audition or you're about to go on stage, you might not even know how to use it, and you then might make yourself even more panicked. I could definitely see something like that happening.
Yeah.
And what I think is cool about, especially, I don't know, exercises related to the breath work, meditation. What I think is cool, and I actually do this with my students, like at the start of lessons sometimes. Like last week with a student or a couple of students, we were doing box breathing to start the lesson. And something that was interesting was with each of these students, they all were saying how they felt more relaxed going into warm ups and exercises. And the sounds that they were making also sounded more relaxed, not quite as tense and tight, which is, there's that added bonus too. It's not just, oh, I'm going to feel calm when I go on stage, but it might actually have an impact on your singing as well, which I think is important.
Totally.
Um,
It's practicing like focus, but then it's also getting you physically into a more relaxed state. Again, down regulating the nervous system, which should hopefully help to at least release some physical tension that you might be holding on to.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to your own experiences with performance anxiety, have you ever had a significant experience of nervousness, anxiety in a performance or audition, and how did you deal with it?
You bet I did. Um, yeah, I think like most people have had an experience. For me, my performance anxiety was a bit um, interesting in that my performance anxiety was really isolated to the classroom environment. After I left school, I was fine auditioning and performing. I'd get those jitters, but it was easier for me to channel the energy in a helpful way. For some reason, the classroom environment was what triggered it for me, kind of that like knowing that you're going to receive feedback, not knowing how you were going to do. Yeah. So anyway, that was what mine was like. And and I think for many clients, it is isolated to sort of maybe just auditions or just performances. There's usually one that creates more anxiety than the other. Um, in terms of dealing with it, for me, I think that what helped was kind of what I was talking about before in terms of setting a very personalized intention for the performance. So instead of going in hoping that they liked me, because what I was noticing is that I was very sensitive to the external feedback that I was receiving. Like if I got really positive feedback, I'd have a great day the rest of the day. And then if I got more critical feedback, I would be really hard on myself and just, yeah, not have a good day. And so it was just like, I found that it was starting to feed into how I felt about my voice, felt about myself as a singer. And so then I started to realize that, okay, I need to just not care about the feedback, whether it's good feedback or whether it's bad feedback. If I'm caring so much about the good feedback, I'm also equally going to be caring about the bad feedback. And I think that I get that sort of goal from a lot of clients is I wish I just didn't care. And I don't and I think that we equate that to like, oh, I wish I just didn't care in general and could just do whatever. I don't think it's about like getting rid of the caring. The caring is what makes you work hard. It's just more about like what do you care about more? Do you care about the positive reinforcement from the environment and what other people are thinking about you? Or do you care about creating your art? Like what is more important to you? Where is the love more? And I do think that that's why I try to spend a lot of time with clients, like building the love for what they do, like knowing what they do really well, what they enjoy about singing and art, because sometimes that gets lost. And the external feedback feels so good. And it's so you get that like immediate hit of self-confidence that it's kind of like a drug that you get addicted to. But yeah, getting really clear on what I did well was helpful for me. It helped me pick rep that was better for me, but then also it made it easier for me to go in and give a better performance because I was focused on what I wanted to achieve in this class, not just I want them to like me.
Nice, nice. And I think like as you were saying that, it made me think of where you were saying too, like I'm just not going to care about the feedback. Like it's like taking what's useful, but I guess almost I think a lot of the issue sometimes too is that we're really attached to
Yeah.
the outcomes, right? We're really
Mhm.
attached to these outcomes. And I think that it makes me think about like these Buddhist ideas of attachment and non-attachment, and also remembering that everything is temporary. Okay, like the good experiences are temporary, and so are the bad experiences. And so it's
Mhm.
like understanding that everything is going to pass. Like we're gonna go through all of these experiences, and it's I think at least I try to keep an open mind and try to remain not attached to any of it. I mean, it's hard. It's easier said than done, I know, but I think like what you were saying in finding that underlying meaning and purpose, like what do I really want to get out of this? Like what is sort of the deeper meaning and purpose behind all of this, right? I
Mhm.
want to be creative. I don't want to just be attached to whatever outcome is going to come of this audition or this performance or this lesson with this teacher, right? It's like, what am I really setting out here to do? And so I really like that you were saying that. I think that that's really, really spot on.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really good differentiation too. That it's not, you're right. It's not that I didn't care anymore, right? It was more that I wasn't internalizing it and connecting it to my self-worth. And I think that that's an important differentiator is am I handing over all of my power to these people or and they were people that I respected and I really liked and I got a lot of good criticism and advice for sure. But if I give over the power of my self-worth to them, it's putting me at the mercy of whatever happens there and takes away any kind of like agency or positive responsibility, I guess, for me moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. And I really hope that people are listening to this and taking, like, there's some really, really good nuggets here. And I really hope that people are listening and taking these things away. Um, I wanted to ask before we kind of wrap up here with our rapid fire, are there any projects that you're currently working on, either as a coach or an individual, that you'd like to share or promote?
Yeah. So if anyone is interested in sort of learning more about mental performance, they can obviously follow me on Instagram at mindbody_strength coach. I also have a weekly newsletter called the Mind Body Reset, and that just sends sort of weekly inspiration and resources, podcasts, like encouragement to just help kind of keep you in that mindset because it does take daily effort to be able to stay connected to the love for the art and keep yourself in that mindset that is resilient, that is feeling confident, that is a result of actions versus just that like feeling that we'll get, I guess. And yeah, so there's that, and then I will be doing a free workshop in September called Own the Audition. So if you're looking to kind of establish a personalized pre-performance routine, that's something that's going to be coming that I'm going to be announcing in the next couple weeks as well.
Awesome. That is also exciting, and I'll be sure to include links to those things in the show description. Um, let's move on to our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
And I say rapid fire, but we'll do these as quickly as we can. Okay. Um,
Okay.
first one is coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay, how do you like your coffee?
So actually, I guess it's a bit of both. So I like a dirty chai.
Oh, nice. Okay,
A dirty chai latte,
yes.
yes.
Yes, I love it. What is the best place you've traveled to?
Oh, I just went to Australia this summer.
Oh
And
my
that was,
God.
yeah, that was the coolest place I'd ever traveled to. I never thought I would make it because it's such a far trip, but it was 100% worth it. So fun.
Oh my God. How long of a trip is that? I feel like when I've looked it up before it was like 24 hours or something of
Yep.
flying. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was that. So we did a connection sort of through, I went from Houston, went to San Francisco, and then down from there. So it was
Gee.
it was a long one, but honestly, it was 100% worth the trip. I would do it again. Already saving to go back.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. What is a song that's currently on repeat that you have on repeat?
Oh, you know what? So I love all music. Love all music, but I have really gotten into, I don't know if you're familiar with Youngblood.
I
LU.
think so.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think so. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so he's like a punk rock artist
Okay.
and released an album called Idols that I'm obsessed with. I love it. So that's been my like go-to run playlist.
Okay, I need to look that up because yeah, I'm always looking for more running music. I'm always adding
Yeah.
to my playlist. What is a book that you recommend everyone read?
Ooh, mm, this is so many good ones. Can I recommend two?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The first one that I feel like is a really like kind of a game changer for me is called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Anker, I believe, is you can fact check me on that. And it's all about how we have this idea that, oh, success will make us happy. But he talks about all of the research about how happiness and like happier people actually are more successful. And then presents you with like all of these tools to be able to get into sort of a more positive mindset, not like a toxically positive mindset, but to be able to sort of utilize your strengths in a way that sets you up for success in the future and the ways to kind of redirect your attention in a way that will set you up for success when you meet challenges in the future. So that I always recommend to everyone, no matter what you do.
What is the name of that one again?
Yeah, it's called the Happiness Advantage.
Happiness Advantage. I'll have to look that up. That sounds cool. And what was the second one? I think you said two books, right?
Yeah, the second one that I feel like is really helpful is called Chatter by Ethan Kross. And it's about self-talk. So, sort of the voice that we hear inside of our heads, how it can set us up again for success or failure based off of the things that are going on in our minds. Because um, what the way that we think and the way that we see the world is our reality. Like we can have the same experience, you and I, but if you see it as this is going to be sort of the end of my career, and I see it as, oh, this is just a challenge I'm going to overcome. It vastly impacts not only our just mental well-being, but also our resilience and our success in the future. So that's another good one if you struggle with self-talk and kind of the voices in your head being in battle sometimes.
Cool. That sounds like a really, I think that sounds like a really useful read for everybody listening to this.
Yeah.
Um, my next question is, what is your guilty pleasure TV show?
Um, Love Island UK.
Oh, nice,
Love
nice,
Island
nice.
UK. I don't watch the US one, but I've always watched the UK one and it goes on every night and I watch it every night. So,
I love it. I love it. And my final question is, what is the best advice you've ever gotten?
um, I think that the best advice that I've ever gotten was sort of along the lines of you can create your own happiness. And and sort of I mean that's like a very general term, but that you can again sort of choose to see things as challenges that can be overcome, or you can choose to see life as, you know, a series of unfortunate events. And so your perspective really does shape your reality. And there are tools to help you sort of get into that mindset. And not to say that there won't be times where you experience pain, you experience sadness, anger, like those more uncomfortable emotions, like those should be experienced. That's part of life as well. But it is a trajectory that can move upward depending on sort of how you approach it.
Yeah, I love that. That is a great piece of advice because I really do think, like, yes, we have certain circumstances in life, and it's like, okay, here are our life circumstances, and we can still make choices within those circumstances. Like,
Yeah.
some choices, some of our choices might be limited, sure, by our circumstances. But yeah, I think that mindset can certainly make the situation worse or it can make it better, right? I think it can add to it or it can subtract to it for sure.
Yeah.
So that is good advice. I like that. Awesome. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for coming on the No Wrong Notes podcast today. It was great having you here.
Oh, it was so much fun. Thanks so much for having me, Veronica.
Okay, friends, that is it for this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Sophie. I know that I got a lot out of it, and I hope that you did too. I figured that this would be a great interview to kind of kick off the fall. I know that there are some auditions coming up, some performances coming up, and so I think all of the tools that Sophie shared in this episode are going to be so helpful to you guys as y'all move through that season. As Sophie mentioned, she's got a workshop coming up. Be sure to check that out. Check out her handles. You can find her on social media. I'll include those in the show description. And in the meantime, you guys, happy singing, y'all.